Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I hope you all are doing well. I am just checking right now to see if I am live in the groups. Awesome. Looks like I am. Perfect. So I hope you all are having a great start to your May. There's definitely now spring in the air. So I'm very, very happy about that. We're getting some sunshine here in Minnesota, which is well needed. Getting that vitamin D, getting outside, calming the body. It's great. And very important for our stress and central nervous system, right? So speaking of which, we will be talking about adrenal dysfunction and how it can downstream into our hormones. So that will be today's topic. Next week, I'll be discussing, foods and hormones and all those different things on how you can support optimal hormone function with the types of foods that you eat, and various foods that could, lead to like estrogen dominance and things like that, which I will discuss a little bit today, but I'll get more into that on like next week. So I hope you all have been enjoying these videos. I know, I've been doing a nice series on our adrenal dysfunction because as you can see, when our systems are inundated with stress and having this chronic stress, it leads to a lot of problems within the body. And these are just some of the problems that it's leading to, burnout with your adrenals, thyroid problems, and now we're going to be looking at the hormone aspect of it. So as always, if I'm discussing something that you're unsure of, please, write it in the comments, ask a question, or, if you need a follow-up or clarification. I love to hear from you. I love the interaction. If you've had your hormones tested, I would love to hear, what are you doing? What are you doing to, help your hormones and all of that? So I absolutely love the interactions. And I want to know what you want to know more of so that I can tailor things for you. All right. So I just saw that I had a comment. Let me just get to, unfortunately on StreamYard, I can only see where it's coming from, but I cannot see, oh, Dana, hello. It's so awesome to have you. Oh, awesome. Oh, I'm so happy that you've been enjoying the videos, and I am excited for you and your camping trip. It looks like it's going to be pretty good weather, I think. Here's to hoping, at least warmer, right? We deserve that. But so nice to have you here. So hormones. All right. The disruption of your hormones is a major side effect of being in chronic overdrive. So, that's just another way of saying that chronic stress that we are feeling. So when you're stressed, your cortisol, steals the building blocks that you need to make estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So an example of this could be where you really notice a difference if you skip a period. When you are experiencing a very stressful event in your life. I know that my period went really wonky when I was going to get married. Things got really delayed, and when it doesn't come when it's supposed to, you're like, hello, wedding, like please don't happen at the wedding. So things like that. It was stressful periods like that. Also, if you've ever been ill, like I know when I had COVID, and I've heard from a lot of people after having COVID that it messed up their periods. That's because COVID has stressed out the system in the body, so it can throw things off and affect your hormones in that way. Another example is loss of sex drive when you're stressed or exhausted. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that one. A few results of chronic stress that can also indicate, there's a hormone problem here at play: PMS, PCOS, irregular periods, ovarian cysts, endometriosis, fertility problems, cyclic breast lumps, and tenderness in the breast, premature ovarian failure, and exacerbated menopausal symptoms as well. So the adrenal steroid hormone pathway is responsible for cortisol, like I've talked about, in videos past. It's also responsible for aldosterone, which is in charge. It's a hormone that helps regulate your blood pressure. Estrogen, progesterone, and androgens, which are a group of hormones, and they're usually seen as like the male hormones. And the most well-known of the androgens is testosterone. So before getting into the cortisol and like the adrenal stuff, I want to give a little background on estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and those kind of major ones. So estrogen, all humans produce estrogen in some form, but the exact type is going to depend on your sex. So in females, the ovaries mainly produce estrogen. There, are other tissues too, like fat tissue, adrenal glands, and the brain can also make estrogen. It's known for its essential role in female growth and reproductive development. It helps maintain the menstrual cycle and facilitates the preparation of the uterus for anticipated and actual pregnancy. It's also necessary for all humans to ensure proper bone growth and health, optimize brain function, and regulate mood. So, like during menopause, we see a lot of times a drop in estrogen, and that's where we can start to see osteoporosis or osteopenia, a lot of that bone thinning for women. So a lot of times it's so crucial to get hormones checked, especially during or like right after menopause, but kind of, I mean, at any time too. But, we really want to monitor that bone and see if we need more help with hormones. Progesterone. Everyone has varying levels of progesterone in their bodies as well. So it's often linked to its presence and effects on females, but again, found in everyone. It's a steroid hormone that plays a key role in preparing for reproduction. And most progesterone is produced by something called the corpus luteum, which is a temporary gland that emerges in the second half of your menstrual cycle after ovulation. So there has been, prescriptions for synthetic progesterone, and a lot of times those are for menopause symptoms, people who have endometriosis, irregular periods, amenorrhea, where the absence of your menstrual cycle, birth control, and those are just kind of the big top ones. Do I check hormone levels? Yes, I am able to utilize testing for hormones. So the Dutch test is usually what I will recommend for clients to test their hormones. And they have, the Dutch has a great one that also checks cortisol levels too, and like throughout the day. So not just at one period, it can check like morning cortisol levels, afternoon, and then your evening. So it has both a urine and salivary component to it. So it's very, very in-depth. It's one of the better labs out there. And I am able to help people get those tests done, and help them with their results too. And where do we move forward, especially with nutrition? So great question. So increased levels of progesterone signal the female body to thicken the lining of the uterus to accept a fertilized egg. So if an egg is fertilized, the body continues to produce progesterone throughout your pregnancy to support the developing fetus. So progesterone is also incredibly necessary for breast milk production. It's also necessary for maintaining fat tissue, stimulating weight gain and appetite. That would definitely be necessary for pregnancy, maintaining optimal central nervous system and kidney function. It also can act as a diuretic. It helps with regulating behavior, regulating your immune, cardiovascular, and respiratory systems. It helps in maintaining that bone health too. And in the brain, progesterone binds to certain receptors to help exert a calming, sedating effect. So it can help improve your sleep and protect against seizures too. Progesterone also enhances the sensitivity of the body to insulin and the function of thyroid hormone. So as you can see, progesterone plays a really big role in our nervous system and so many different functions of the body. We want to make sure that we are maintaining adequate and optimal levels of progesterone. So low levels can have significant effects on menstruation, reproduction, your libido, weight, and overall health. Progesterone also converts to estrogens, cortisol, and aldosterone in the body too. Again, aldosterone is that steroid hormone that helps regulate blood pressure. An increase in progesterone for males typically leads to an increase in the body's estrogen levels for males. And so testosterone. Again, everyone has some circulating levels of testosterone in their body. It's made in the ovaries and the adrenal glands in women. Again, adrenal glands are popping up. It enhances libido and sexual response. It strengthens ligaments, builds muscle and bone, assists brain function, and is associated with assertive behavior and sense of well-being. Levels of testosterone influence both stamina and restful sleep as well. And they protect against cardiovascular disease in both men and women. In men, testosterone is produced in the testicles and helps maintain bone density for men, fat distribution, muscle strength and muscle mass, facial and body hair, red blood cell production, sex drive, and sperm production. Unfortunately, with age, and this goes for all of the hormones, testosterone levels and sex hormone levels gradually decline as we age. And typically for testosterone, it's about 1% a year after 30 or 40 years of age for men that we start to see the decrease. So those are the different hormones, most common that we hear about. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on there. Now I'm going to jump towards, the chronic stress and, cortisol and adrenaline and how those increase with our adrenal dysfunction, if you recall from, previous videos. But the cortisol and adrenaline aren't the only hormones that our adrenal glands produce during stressful periods. If you recall, I also spoke about DHEA or DHEAS as well. There's another hormone called androstenedione. Oh my gosh. Every time I'm on video, I just can't say it. Androstenedione. There we go. I just need to slow down. So DHEA and DHEAS and androstenedione, there we go, buffer the brain from the impact of cortisol, but when they become elevated due to chronic stress, we can actually start to see PCOS result from this. So cortisol and DHEAS compete in the body for a same precursor, which is also, precursors are just called building blocks. And what they compete for is pregnenolone. And pregnenolone is a precursor or building block for all other steroid hormones, like the ones that I mentioned, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and they are converted directly into DHEA and or progesterone. So without pregnenolone, there would be no human steroid hormone production. So we need this. Levels of this steroid hormone naturally drop with age, just like the other, health promoting hormones that I mentioned. But when we have an increase in our cortisol during the chronic stress and the chronic periods of stress, we can actually see pregnenolone stolen from making DHES. So it focuses more on making the cortisol. So it goes into cortisol favor because our body's like, hey, we're under chronic stress. We need to make sure we have adequate levels of cortisol in our body so that we are able to function, do what we needed to do to survive and make sure that we survive. So let's focus on cortisol and cortisol secretion and building cortisol. So we then have this pregnenolone move away from creating DHES and focusing more on cortisol levels. So DHES is a precursor of estrogen and testosterone. So it's converted to these hormones through fat, muscle, bone, and liver. But when we have pregnenolone stolen due to the stress and trying to make sufficient amounts of cortisol, again, we are taking away from that DHEAS, and therefore we're going to be reducing the testosterone in our body. We're going to be reducing that estrogen because DHEAS also converts into estrogen and testosterone. So please let me know if that did not make any sense. When we're taking away from our DHEAS, we're going to lower testosterone and estrogen in the body. That's going to disrupt our hormones. So the pregnenolone steal is the body's attempt to make sufficient cortisol to support the high level of chronic stress. So ultimately, we are depleting the body of adequate sex hormones and also lowering thyroid function as well. So high testosterone levels, this can show up, especially like if you're seeing PCOS. A lot of times high testosterone comes with PCOS. So any imbalance in our sex hormones, it's never a good thing, whether it's too high of testosterone, too low of testosterone, there's going to be problems. When we have high testosterone levels, we can see hirsutism, which is excessive hair growth, especially on the face. It also can lead to, we can have like male pattern baldness and acne show up with PCOS. Very unpleasant symptoms indeed. Weight gain is very, very common as well. Ovulation can be prevented. And PCOS is also responsible for about 70% of all cases of infertility due to that lack of ovulation too. The good news is that we can reverse this. So again, this chronic stress can be this underlying factor for PCOS. But if we get our chronic stress under control, we can reverse these symptoms. We can reverse what is going on in the body, get levels back into normal range. Also, during times of stress, your thyroid stimulating hormone that your pituitary gland releases is released. T4, which is a thyroid hormone, is also released. But instead of T4 being converted to an active form, it's actually converted to reverse T3. So it actually puts the brakes on your metabolism. If go back to the videos, rewatch those videos when I talk about thyroid health and thyroid dysfunction, and how stress can put a halt to our thyroid hormones and create some problems. Cortisol can also decrease testosterone levels, like I mentioned, because you're taking away from that DHEAS, which converts into testosterone. Cortisol also disrupts the balance of estrogen in women. So we can see either estrogen dominance or we can see lowered estrogen. And estrogen dominance can happen from, that the high cortisol, when cortisol is secreted, estrogen can be secreted. We start to gain that belly fat. A lot of times when we get that belly fat, we see more estrogen dominance as well because it's in those fat tissues and fat cells. And then, if we're eating high carb foods, having foods that promote more higher estrogen in the body, which I will get to next week, it just it keeps that estrogen dominance going, and we can start to see more hormone disruption, more fatigue, and more issues. Cortisol can also lower progesterone levels and disrupt the balance of aldosterone. So again, it can have an impact on our blood pressure. It'll vary from person to person. During chronic stress, your inflammatory cell production increases as well. And I spoke about this in other videos. So your body is on alert and wants to be ready at any sign of danger. So if we are constantly triggering our inflammatory cells, we have this underlying chronic inflammation that can start to go on within the body. We can get this immune system overactivation as well. So, and this is because our body's on high alert. So our immune system is on high alert because if a threat comes and it comes for our immune system, it needs to be ready. It needs to be ready to protect us, be ready to bounce back. make sure that we survive, all of that. So this can actually increase our risk of developing inflammatory reactions too. So eczema, hives, food intolerances we can start to see, allergies, etc. The low grade inflammation that I spoke about can also then result in fatigue, obviously, weight gain, brain fog, migraines, low blood pressure, anxiety and panic attacks, cognitive function changes, insomnia, aches and pains, depression, and then conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and PMS as well. The overactivation of our immune system then can ultimately lead to autoimmune conditions too, because it's chronically activated our immune system, but there's no like infection that it's fighting. So eventually our body starts to just fight itself and start attacking itself because it's overactive. And that's where we can start to see like Hashimoto's really come in as well, and other autoimmune conditions too. Elevated cortisol can also suppress inflammation in the body too. So again, it can do a slew of things with our immune cells, inflammatory response. But when it suppresses our inflammation, it inhibits our infection fighting responses. It leads us to becoming more vulnerable to infections, which is going to throw off our gut bacteria. It's going to throw off hormone balance, all of that. So you're sick more often. It can make you more susceptible to reactivation of certain viral infections like Epstein-Barr virus, which has been known to lead to severe fatigue for people and be a stealth cause of autoimmune conditions as well. Elevated cortisol and overproduction of inflammatory cytokines directly suppress our thyroid function and active thyroid hormone. So that can lead to Hashimoto's, and that can further lead to hormone issues and imbalances. Because our thyroid hormone, also our thyroid hormones and thyroid in general also directly influence our sex hormones too. So there is like this intertangled web that just is not lovely, right? I mean, it is lovely when everything's in balance, but when we have one system like our adrenal glands just going haywire and having dysfunction, we have this downstream effect of then it is affecting our thyroid, it's affecting our hormones because we're having this pregnenolone steal, we're having this cortisol steal, we're having problems. So that is the gist of the downstream effect from our adrenal glands. So again, a lot of the same root causes of adrenal dysfunction or thyroid dysfunction are the same ones that lead to hormonal chaos and dysfunction as well. So the cortisol steal, like I mentioned, with that adrenal dysfunction problem going on, microbiome disruptions, and anytime our microbiome gets disrupted, that's also going to, like, let's say that's the starting factor that can disrupt our adrenal, thyroid, hormones, it and our immune system. Like there's a whole lot there. So we want to make sure our gut microbiomes are in balance, especially when we're trying to heal our adrenals, our thyroid, and our hormones. We want to make sure we're healing our gut microbiome along the way. Otherwise, it's not really going to do much for us. Excess weight can lead to that hormonal chaos too. Insulin resistance, inflammation, like I had just mentioned, environmental toxins, and overwhelmed detoxification systems. So we want to make sure that we are really helping our detox systems. We are avoiding toxins as best as we can, leading as clean of lives as possible, going through regular detoxes. There's so much to this. So many outside factors that can really lead to this chaos and turmoil with our adrenals, thyroid, and now our hormones we see can be affected as well. So next week, I will be talking on nutrition. I'll go over more of like the estrogen dominance too. And, there are different foods that can really lead to estrogen dominance. And I'll go through the slew of problems when it comes to estrogen dominance as well. But how can we heal? How can we put our hormones in balance through foods? is going to be the biggest takeaway for next Wednesday. So I hope that you found this one helpful. As you can see, it's just a very integrated, interconnected web, that when we start to burn out one area and get it out of balance, it creates this downstream effect. And we all know what happens when we start to have hormones out of balance. There's a lot of issues, a lot of problems that can arise with that. So please let me know if you have any questions. If there was something that didn't make sense, I will help clarify. And if there is an area where you would like to know more, please let me know, and I can expand on it as well next week. But I hope that you found this helpful, and I hope that you're starting to see this connection between our systems in our body and how stress really impacts a whole lot of systems at once. And with that, I will leave you to the rest of your Wednesday, and I hope that you have a fabulous rest of your Wednesday. You guys take care, and thank you for watching. I'll see ya.